Welcome everyone to the call, the DNA Behavior webinar, API webinar. It's a pleasure to have everyone on the call today, and I think we've got some great things to share with you today. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started here. So my name is Leon Morales. I am the Managing Director here at DNA Behavior. I've been with the company since 2012, and over the last 18 months, our focus has really been around the whole concept of API integration. And we've got a number of partners that work with us building their own platforms, or with enterprise actually building their own behavioral experience within their platform. So it's an exciting time for us here at DNA Behavior, and we like to share this. This is our fourth webinar that we've hosted, and if anybody's interested in some of the previous webinars, please let Lisa Travis know, and she'll make sure that you get that webinar. But our focus today is really around sort of matching. So I'm going to let Ryan introduce himself and the work that he's doing with us.
Thanks, Leon. So my name is Ryan Scott. I'm the CTO at DNA. I've actually been with the company for coming up on 10 years, and I lead the technology and development. Right now, one of the main focus areas of my work is helping companies connect business challenges that they have with specific behavioral insights that we can collect. So right now we're able to collect around 200 behavioral insights. So we can pretty much cover every single habit of an individual, from how they work to how they make decisions to how they invest. So we pretty much can collect or predict almost every single human habit. So being able to connect all the dots creatively to create or complete business challenges is something that's really a passion of mine, and we'll highlight a few of those aspects in this call.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. So today's agenda that we have is, again, the theme is matching powered by DNA. So we have three case studies that we wanted to present today, and one is around sales reps to customer matching. Second one is VIP, sort of a very important person customer to account rep matching. That'll be sort of the theme there. And then the third is matching employees to complete a critical project. It's one that we worked on. And then as a fourth item, we really wanted to challenge the group, because we know we have a number of people that have been on our previous webinars around unlocking your creativity. So those are the four items. We'll try to keep the webinar to around 30 minutes, or just 35 minutes. There is a Q&A box that you're welcome to ask a question, or just raise your hand and we'll be able to answer those questions. And if it's something that we really would like to share with the rest of the group, we'll do that at the very end of the call. And just so you do know, you will get a copy of the presentation that we're presenting today, along with the recording, and that'll come out later this afternoon, along with the transcript. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Right, so who are we as a business? For DNA Behavior, as I mentioned, the company has been around since 2001, and our CEO started the company out of Sydney, Australia, and his light bulb moment really was around how to empower people, sort of become more self-empowered in what they do. So that's really been the common theme for DNA Behavior. And as Ryan mentioned, the problem we do solve is really helping organizations understand how to, with their employees or their clients, how to work better together, whether it's on the financial DNA side with, building suitable portfolios, or within a team, building a team. We're able to solve those problems, those human differences. We also sort of uncover that money attitudes, those human behaviors that Ryan mentioned, those 200 insights that we actually track. And then on the bottom there, on the 2002 Harvard research, and those of you that have sort of work in organizations probably recognize that stat, that 87% of business issues are truly around communication issues. It's typically because you see that dimension of, somebody's either very rational, very results focused, or somebody's more relational and they just don't understand each other. And you really need both in an organization. You sort of need both sets of behaviors to be able to sort of have a great customer experience with your customers and sort of throughput in the organization. But that 87% we see quite often, and that's really why, people actually come to DNA Behavior. Next slide. All right, so the work that we've been doing over the last 18 months really, our API strategy started back in 2015. We have a number of organizations that use the API platform, but we've actually sort of branded as an omni-channel behavioral platform. And the reason we do that is it leverages the whole concept of the financial DNA and the business DNA, communication DNA solutions, but it really helps organizations deliver a seamless customer experience at every touch point, that digital experience. So if you've ever gone into your bank and maybe you have investments within the bank, many times customers experience something where they feel like they're not even known by the company. They go to the teller, or they go to a financial advisor within the same firm, and they don't really know who they are. And that's really what the experience that many organizations are building with the API sort of integration really means, synchronizing across all the channels, whether it's online, social media, call center, and using sort of an agile approach. So that's really the description of the omni-channel behavioral platform. And to do that, the methodology that we use, our questionnaire, is called natural behavior, and it uncovers what we call natural instinctive behavior. And if you see that represented on the iceberg slide, those things that are underneath the waterline are called natural behavior and instinctive behavior. So the theory is, with our forced choice questionnaire, that it uncovers sort of these natural and instinctive behaviors that are really wired by the time we're 3 years old. So people would ask, what I continuously learn, post 3, and that's true, but those are more of the learned behavior that we learn, through our college education, our relationships, continuous learning. Those are learned behaviors. But under pressure, or when we're sort of in intense periods of work, we revert to these natural and instinctive behaviors. And I always say, when you're home, that's where your family sees your natural and instinctive behavior. They know who you are pretty at that deepest level. In the workplace, you can sort of use that learned behavior to sort of operate, and that's sometimes called emotional intelligence. So the two work very much in tandem, but under pressure, that's when we revert to that natural instinctive behavior, and that's what we measure. So those 200 insights that Ryan mentioned at the earlier start of the call, those are the things that are important to know when you're building a financial plan with a financial services organization or within a leadership team, knowing how those behaviors will manifest itself. And we're a strengths-based company, so we really look at both the strengths and the struggle. So a strength overplayed becomes a struggle. So that's why it's important to know that. All right, and it's a very predictable, long-term, so you only have to take the questionnaire once, and it's good really for the lifetime. And we have a campaign running right now around 10 minutes to have a lifetime of results, taking the 10-minute questionnaire. So our first digital case will be around a bank use case, and I think Ryan will cover that.
Yep, thanks, Leon. So Leon just shared the iceberg slide, so really getting to know the client underneath the surface. So it's important to know when we're talking about matching two people, if there was just somebody that, a new prospect that comes to your business and you had to match them up with an account rep, if you're just taking that client for face value from what you see on above the surface of that client, there's only a 40% chance that you would choose the right account rep for that client to work with. So what we have done is really to look below the surface using the techniques that we just showed in the iceberg slide in order to match them up with the perfect match on your from your team. So I want to kind of show you how we've done that. This is a real specific use case we've done with a bank in Australia. So that particular bank has 5,400 advisors. Their whole business is based on goals-based financial planning. And their fee model, which is unique for financial services, is a fee-only advice model. And using Salesforce and a few other different technology tools, we've been able to piece all this together. So if you see on the left-hand side, there's a digital desk that two individuals are interfacing with. That is a real picture of really what we've helped them build. So they have used this smart desk that Sony builds, and they have been able to integrate financial DNA as well as a custom goals-based assessment that we help them build in order to make all this work. So essentially, as a client gets onboarded into their platform, they're greeted by a concierge, and that concierge is a liaison between the clients and the advisors. So that's one thing that's very important in a business process in order to match employees to the right rep, is that as I said earlier, whenever someone comes in from face value, if you just take them from face value, you don't know who that client is going to work with. So it's important to put somebody as an intermediary as the first step that can kind of introduce it to the business. And then that person, their job is to match the client to the right rep. So I'm going to walk you through the actual process that we help them build in order to do this. So on day one, the client meets with the concierge, who's the liaison of this whole process. They're invited to a client portal, and that's where the client actually completes their DNA process. So the DNA process of how we actually understand everything that's below the surface of a client is a 10-minute questionnaire. It only needs to be completed once in the client's lifetime, so it never needs to be revisited. And we're able to understand 200 plus behavioral insights on the particular client. On day two, or sometime shortly after the client completing the profile, at that point the concierge has all the different data points in order to match up the client with the right advisor. And then that particular matching powers the entire advice process. So these are all of the different touch points that we have built using DNA to power this business. So this is quite a lot of different interactions and a lot of data to power this. So the one thing that's really important to know is if you are primarily interested in just matching two people, it's a quite simple algorithm and process in order to match two people. So it's not too much to bite on or take off all at one time. And I will explain that here. So with this particular process, imagine if you had a couple, a husband and a wife. The husband in this particular use case, which is actually a real use case, so we pulled this out from an example client set and advisor set that they have. The husband is a reflective thinker, which is a similar style to me. So it's going to be someone that's going to be more introverted, detailed, oriented, fact-based individual. The wife is an engager. So that's somebody that's going to be 100% an extrovert, still pretty cautious from a risk approach, but they're going to have a tendency to want to talk and interact about the actual plan and less see like documents and details. So the husband and wife actually have quite a different opposite style. So this is an interesting use case of how do you match up two people if they're quite opposite. So in DNA behavior, whenever someone is scored using our algorithm and takes the questionnaire, we are able to segment them. So there's 10 different client segments. So we would be looking to identify or match up the clients with an advisor that's not necessarily super extroverted or introverted, someone that's in the middle that they would be able to bounce ideas off of both clients and be able to kind of meet the middle of the road. So with the advisors that are available or currently have bandwidth in their work, there's 3 that currently are available: an initiator, a facilitator, and an influencer. So as you can see, the one that's in the middle there highlighted in green, the facilitator, is the one that we have matched up with this particular client set. So there are ways that you can do this on a very simplistic basis, which is what I've highlighted here, and we have a matching algorithm in our API to support that. But if you want to get very sophisticated with it, you can also pull on additional data points in order to do that you may have in your business. So if you're interested in kind of the creative ways of using big data to do this, we're happy to discuss. We have an opportunity to use our office hours that we'll put up onto the screen a little bit later. And that would be a good idea of something that we can do a deep dive with you on. So to give you an example of how we have built this process to work from an omni-channel experience perspective, which again is creating a consistent experience from a digital perspective and in person. This is a perfect example of what we've done with this business. So not only are we providing a custom digital experience by integrating DNA into the screens and making sure that clients are communicated correctly, advisors using a very simple Salesforce app are able to get the individual communication keys of the client that they're about to meet, along with the address of the place that they're meeting them at in their phones. So they're able to get the quick and dirty on the client just so they can give themselves a refresher before they meet the client face to face. So in this particular example, you can see that the client Chris Coddington they're about to meet. If they're just walking in, they need to provide him with the big picture plan, present him with the action plans, and expect to ask for the logics and key points. So this person is going to be kind of in the middle between he likes to get the high level overview up front, and then he may ask some very pointed fact-based questions later down the road. So it's important that you don't match him up with an advisor that's just going to just gloss over every single detail and not really want to get deep on this. Chris Coddington is going to see that with a lot of skepticism and think that the advisor doesn't know what they're talking about. And the same thing goes with any technical sales process. So advice is a very relationship-oriented sales process, and a lot of trust needs to be built with that. You can have a similar sales process or a similar matching algorithm used for many other sales processes and businesses, and that's how this can kind of relate and translate to other industries. Just real quickly, I'll show you another aspect of this particular integration that we've done. DNA has extensive experience in creating custom reports. So this particular custom report we built for AMP. If this is opened up in their account, it has all of their logos and branding. A main aspect of their brand is the dark blue that's on the top of the page, as well as the hot air balloon. For them, that focus is like rising to an individual's goals. And we worked with Deloitte Digital to create this particular report for them. So we have the ability and the capabilities of doing very custom reports. That's something that we do quite a bit. So if you are not wanting to build a complete end-to-end custom app on your end, and you just want a report that can be displayed from our system, that's also something that we can explore with you. And then going a little bit further, this is the VIP customer use case that we discussed. So not only can you build very scalable processes like we just discussed, where you're just matching a bunch of different people and then let everybody go along. That's more of a scalable mass volume kind of way of doing it. We have a VIP algorithm that would allow an individual account rep to really study the client and understand exactly how to market to them in order to build a better relationship. So we've worked with a large bank in Northeast United States. They have very high number of employees, 52,000, and their core business is wealth management. So they're very interested in this VIP customer marketing, where they have the ability of really understanding the client. So this particular use case is you have an influencer client. So influencer is one of our 10 client segments for natural behavior. An influencer is somebody that's a very commanding or authoritative client, but they're also going to be an extrovert. So this particular person has a group 7 risk profile. It's very aggressive. So this person is going to want to take a lot of risks and can withstand the losses that may present if the market does go down. They're always going to see that with an opportunity of, hey, I can always invest more. I can make this up later. So this particular person using behavioral marketing, once they're matched with the right rep, that rep could then use all of these techniques to build a better relationship with them. So the preferred contact method with this particular person is going to be a meeting. So that's going to be in person, or if that's not available, a web-based call where the cameras are turned on. Preferred writing style with this client is going to be present opportunities, because they're going to be always kind of optimistic and idealistic, and also present bullet points. The meeting space setup for this particular client is a boardroom with more of a formal style. So this particular person likes to be with decision makers. They like that more formal style, and they like to be treated with that high level kind of executive feel. Optimal marketing spend for this particular client is going to be something like a steak dinner, so like a really nice dinner. Meeting with other leaders, that's something that they really value. They like increasing their network, and also meeting other people that have power in industries. Or something like a sporting event would be a good match for this particular client. So something that's kind of a mixture of networking and also an experience is something that this person would really value. To give you a complete opposite approach of that particular client would be something that would be very similar to me. So this particular client is a reflective thinker, which is one of the other segments of our client setup. So this particular client is going to be more introverted, and they're going to think before they react, and they're going to always be somewhat skeptical of people that are trying to sell them something. They're always going to be aware that they're being sold to. So actually the sales process needs to be catered to this particular client's needs. So you'll see as I go through these particular points, the style that someone is going to go through in order to market to this client is completely different than the one I just gave you. So the preferred contact method is phone call and email follow-up. So something that's kind of quick and not too aggressive in your face. Preferred writing style for this client is going to be specific and use facts. The meeting space setup is going to be a warm functional room, something very practical. If there's a whiteboard that's available or a screen or something like that, that would help the client really connect with the message. The meeting format would be keep it structured. Definitely provide an agenda ahead of time. So these particular clients, they tend to kind of get locked up if they don't know or don't get an opportunity to think about things before they're asked. That's something that you can put them on the spot for. So I wouldn't run into a meeting and ask this person, like, what are your top 10 goals for this year? They would think that that was a little bit weird because they didn't get a time to think about it. So providing an agenda and things to think about beforehand really help. And the optimal marketing spend for this client is completely different than the one we just discussed, and actually quite less expensive. So that's something that's important to note as you are trying to come up with an optimal marketing spend. This particular client would have just as good of a connection with the account rep if they went to a coffee house. If they're mailed or emailed a book or given a gift card to kind of increase their learning, and or if they were just provided a gift card to dinner. So they get pressured and they feel like they're getting sold to if they actually have to go to dinner with the rep. But if they are given a gift card, they can enjoy that time and they will always remember that that gift card was given by that particular rep. So they'll always kind of go back to that point. So now that we discussed how to connect to VIP clients, I'm going to hand it back over to Leon, and Leon's going to talk about how you match up employees. So we're switching to business DNA for this. So how to match up employees for a critical project.
Great, thank you, Ryan. And we did have one question, and I just wanted to take the time to answer it because it may generate some other questions as well. I think it's a good point to cover. And the question is matching done to use similar styles, or is there some value in selecting complementary styles with the recognition of the uses of differences to optimize the relationship? So my answer is really around, especially in financial advice, that many times, the research shows that couples in marriages, that 70% of the time they're opposites. So the advisor's real sort of challenge is to connect with both of the clients, because usually they'll gravitate, they're going to be more similar to one client than the other. So it's really learning the techniques to be able to sort of work with both individuals, and there are things that the advisor can do sort of pre-meeting to get ready for it, to understand that. And in its simplest sort of terms, we sort of measure the work in the way that we sort of score the questionnaire about how relational someone is or how results focused someone is. And we all have dimensions of both of them in every one of our profiles, but some of it's going to be more intense than others. So for instance, I'm a little more on the results side, and so is Ryan, but there are members on our team that are very relational, and we need that because it sort of creates that experience where if somebody comes in and works with us, they need an element of both. So it's really learning how to work with both of them. In the business DNA side, which we're going to move to, we do see that many times in small to medium-sized businesses that the CEO is very hardwired for results, they typically hire people like themselves. So what you have is a company that's built with a lot of rational people, but it may not sort of exude the customer experience that's needed to grow the business. So as we work with that, or think about it, if you have questions, please put those in the Q&A box. So now we'll move to, this is work that we did on a mission critical project team. This was a team of 30 people in this large organization. It actually supported the entire organization, the 31,000 employees. It's a operating business with $2.1 billion, and they had just come off of a post-Oracle ERP implementation. So they spent 18 months actually installing the Oracle system, and so this data analytics team was really expected to take the information and make it more operational. So the leaders in the company really had information, especially the CFO was one of the direct customers of this group. So with this CFO that came in, she realized that it was a non-functioning group. There was a lot of issues with these 30 employees. There was just lots of team dynamics that were going on that weren't generating any sort of reports. In fact, they had not had a report come out in like 6 months that was really of meaningful information. So there was a lot of really sort of stagnation that was going on the team. And her analysis at the beginning was that she needed to disband the entire team and start new with a new group. And so we were brought in to help them understand sort of the differences between each one of the 30 individuals. And that was done through a series of one-on-one meetings to understand the data that we had to build it into the program. Was used to really these one-on-one in this team awareness session. Because what we found out was it wasn't that the group was totally, not suited for the work. They actually had the right individuals that could do it. They just didn't understand how they could be better working together. So through a series, and this is really a 90-day window that we worked with them to understand how they could actually understand each other's styles differently and how they actually worked. And so there was a element of the people, the process, and the technology to be able to come together to understand how to actually work better together. And it definitely led to that 70% team productivity. So after the 90 days, there was a capstone meeting that everybody came together. They sort of read out all their team deliverables that we're working with for the next 6 months. And I was actually in that meeting, and the CFO was actually there. And it was remarkable. Out of all the 30 employees that were part of that project, there was only one person that actually self-selected to leave that team. So that wasn't even something that was forced. They realized they just were a wrong fit for this particular group, and they moved to another business unit within that organization. But they had, again, the 70% team productivity. They had 3 times the project efficiency, so they were actually getting better throughput. So now customers were relying on their data, so they were actually getting much more sort of requests for their information. And one of the deliverables really benchmarking the roles so we could really understand, if people were the wrong fit, maybe there were some adjustments with some of their work. And it definitely led to over $6 million savings to the organization because of this. So it was really sort of a meaningful sort of program to really match these relationships with the right people to do the work. So it was interesting that all 30 people really started out, they were the right type of work, but it was really a process breakdown of understanding how to communicate with each other. It sort of goes back to that first page that we talked about, that 87% of business issues are communication related. So it was pretty simple to be able to do that. But absent of that, they've been stalled for a number of months before the CFO started taking action with how to actually remediate this. So we continue to work with this organization today. So, and they're definitely great advocates of the work. So if there's any questions on that, I think we're going to sort of talk about, we've had a number of people on the webinar over the last 4 webinars. And, our recommendation is if you're interested in building a solution, there are a number of things that we can do to help support you. And I'll let Ryan sort of describe it a little bit more on what we'll do on that. But one thing I really wanted to advocate, because I do work with a number of firms that are building sort of a solution, or they're getting ready to, or they're preparing for it, is to really remember that MVP. Keep it very simple, that minimum viable product of what you're trying to build, and then you can make it much more robust as you go through that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ryan to describe what we'll offer.
Yeah, thanks very much, Leon. And for everybody, we kind of broached the subject at the very beginning, but one of the things that we want to help you all with is to help unlock the creativity. So one thing that we've been doing in this webinar series, so this is the fourth webinar in our API and Behavioral Insight series, we've given a lot of concepts, but we haven't helped connect all the dots of all the different custom solutions that could be built to solve business challenges. So one thing that needs to be said with that is that a lot of the different apps that people come up with as we work with them are very unique and very custom, and or you may be working on something that's proprietary or confidential. If that is the case, we have the opportunity for our office hours. So we're happy to take any discussions offline. And if an NDA is required to be signed before that, if that would make you more comfortable, that's something that we would definitely do, and we do all the time. So we can work with you and kind of lay out what it is that you're trying to do and how behavioral insights can be connected to that. So as we mentioned, we have over 200 different insights, and they're all kind of split up between how people work, their habits for investing, spending, decision-making, communicating, and even living. So we have all these different aspects, and we wanted to go through some specific categories of insights and different apps that we have experience in building. So I'm just going to flash these up on the screen and then just give you guys some time to kind of think and explore. And we also have our office hours that are on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's a block of time between 2 and 4 Eastern time. So just happy to jump on a call with you and kind of explore your own ideas. So as far as enabling seamless communication, we have the insights and the know-how to help you build any kind of app, whether it's in your CRM or a mobile-based app, to help better connect to clients, understanding what type of communication that they need, and then the action points of how to communicate with them. So we have different APIs with our market mood. We have different templates for sending behaviorally driven marketing content to client. This is all things that we have experience in doing and our API can support. The next different category of ways that we help is encouraging client engagement. So we've given a few different examples with that here. We've worked on some specific apps in the past that gamify things. So picking up on verbal and nonverbal cues from clients. So even if clients haven't completed DNA, if that's a roadblock for your business, you can still use DNA insights. So it may not be as accurate as them completing a 10-minute questionnaire, but you may be able to just push the needle a little bit forward, by talking to us and using some of our insights. That's something that we're always open to discussing. We've created playbooks for advisors and teams of working with different types of clients and the styles that they have, marketing plans, things like that. We've extensive experience in enabling prospecting, so using CRMs and or creating specific campaigns in order to match people in order to enable that prospecting process, speed it up, and or build engagement there. Here's some opportunities for process improvement. So a lot of the work that we do is behind the scenes. So from a client perspective, they don't know a lot of this stuff is going on. They never really see all the 200 different behavioral insights, or a firm may be only pulling on 7 of those insights and the client may only see 1 of them. So it's kind of a magic and a dance between what the client sees so they don't get overwhelmed or confused, and how the teams use this information. So we have a lot of experience in what works in what specific capacities. And in our webinars, we have a tendency to kind of discuss everything on a very high level, glossed over process to spark your brain. And then we're happy to take any specific discussions offline. So that's really what the opportunity is for this. The last different category that we have a lot of experience in is enhancing the financial planning process. So our business started in financial services, and then we branched it off to provide that omni-channel experience for employees and clients digitally and in person. So that's really why we have all the different solutions, but the backbone and the core of our business is in financial services. So we have a lot of experience in that and more relationship driven sales that, lend itself to using our questionnaire and embedding that into the process. So again, we have our open office hours Tuesdays and Thursdays between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern. If you're in a different time zone or if that time doesn't work, just feel free to reach out to us. We're going to be sending out the link to the recording and also the slides so we can just provide a custom meeting time for you. And without further ado, we will open it up to questions.
Ryan, we did have another question that came through on, organizations, many of them use DISC, Berkman, Hogan, does DNA behavior play nicely with those? And my answer with that, and I advise that for anyone that's using it, we find many times that organizations have legacy assessments within the company. So we never try to go in and try to displace that. That's not an objective with DNA behavior. We do have a huge advantage because we do have the API integration with that, but those organizations even use a retail version. What they find is that there's much deeper insights because we do measure those, pretty deep insights within that relational and results-focused profile. But I've worked in many engagements where companies might have Berkman or they might have strength finders, and we find that there's different dimensions of the information that they can use. So the answer to the question that we do coexist with those. So it can be done. I think our advantage, again, is to customize the experience. So hopefully that answers the question. And I don't see any other questions in the question box, but as Ryan mentioned, we're going to start the open hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Lisa Travis will send out that link along with the presentation and the recording for today. We really appreciate everyone's participation today, and we do host these API webinars once a month, and we plan to have one in October. It hasn't yet been scheduled, but we'll send out the content description and what that is. But in the meantime, if you do have any questions or want to schedule time, with our team on Tuesdays or Thursdays, please do that. We would look forward to working with you. And I guess with that, we'll end the call. Thank you very much for your participation today.